Today on Rates and Barrels, we dig into the new miss distance leaderboards for pitchers at Baseball Savant.
I think it's possible that we might be able to use them to get at the interactions between pitches. You can call it tunneling, you can call it sequencing, but there's something in there that we're not capturing that these stats might get us to.
And we're going to dig into some undervalued relievers thanks to a great piece from Ben Clemens. Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, June 18th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris, Trevor May here with you. Trevor, you were on the road last week. What were you up to?
I was on a mission to prove once and for all if two-way playing is even as hard as they make it seem. Like, I just wanted to know, like, everyone says Shohei Ohtani's amazing, but is he really?
And is he really
and
amazing?
let's just say I came to a pretty definitive conclusion, but you're gonna have to wait for that to be unveiled on YouTube.
Fantastic. Love the premise. Did you let's see, you've been to a volcano, been to a World Cup game in the last week. What did you do on your Wednesday to top those two things?
I had to run all the, dogs and beers and stuff off, so I had to go on a 10-mile run. That's
okay.
Basically what I did yesterday. Also working on those ranks, hard at work. Bing, 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 bing. Ranks on Friday.
All right. Trevor put on the cape. Eno went back to being a regular human for a few days until the weekend hits again, and then he goes back to being our version of Ferris Bueller. Some cool moments, one in particular from Wednesday I want to throw to you guys before we get into some bigger topics. Daniel Espino got his first big league strikeout, scoreless frame in Milwaukee, 100 miles an hour, top rail, nice fastball. Just an amazing story because he's been one of those guys that's dealt with massive injuries. Zach Meisel had the story. He didn't appear in a professional game for 1,241 days because of injuries, including 2 shoulder surgeries. So to see him kind of come back all the way and get to the big leagues is just a great story all around. We'll see what the rest of the season holds for him, but holy cow, what an effort just to even get to the big league mound, given what he's been through.
Yeah, that's, what is that? Like 3.7 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like that is a very long time. As someone who missed almost like 19 months, and it was like 400 and something days or whatever it was. Maybe it wasn't 19, maybe 17 months. That was like, it felt like I had never, like I was debuting again. So to stick with it that long and to really just, even after 2 shoulder surgeries, shoulders are not the good ones. There is no good surgery, but not the one that it has the better outcomes. To come back and do that is incredible. It kind of gives me shades of like when Aaron Barrett came back after his elbow situations for the Nationals, and that he's getting an opportunity, and then he got to the big leagues, and then I just can't help but notice 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's
like, Jesus.
That's got, I mean,
Crazy.
he's at 100. I mean, that's got to be a record, actually, because the type of surgery he had was the capsule surgery, right? Mm-hmm. And, he had 2 of them. He had a capsule surgery, and then he had to have another capsule surgery. And that's why he was out so long. I mean, first of all, I can't find a record of somebody having 2 capsule surgeries at all. So first of all, there's a record. And then in terms of velo, the other guys who had capsule surgery, Brandon Woodruff, Julio Urias, JP France, Johan Santana, Chris Young, Rich Harden, Mark Pryor. None of these guys threw 100 afterwards. I mean, none of these guys even threw what they threw before. So a testament to real hard work. I mean, maybe it helped that he was on the younger side of these guys, but it's almost like a Tommy John revision of the worst. Almost, I think capsule surgery is like, that or the nerve TOS. Those are like the 2 worst surgeries you can have. And he had 2 of them. So congratulations to him. His family was, his mom was crying, and I'd be too if I was his dad, man. Like that's a lot.
Just a really good story in Cleveland with Espino getting all the way back. Some other news around the league. We did see Andrew Painter get optioned after another rough start against the Marlins. We broke him down in detail a couple of weeks ago. Maybe some time at AAA, some possible adjustments will be on the horizon to get him back and contributing in the back of that Phillies rotation at some point, maybe in the second half of this season. But the story that was getting kind of a weird reaction, I would say, on social media was the story out of Boston. Kyle Boddy, founder of Driveline, no longer serving in an advisory role for the Red Sox. And it even got to the response from Bill Simmons, who dropped a finally some good Red Sox news response to the story, which I think it's weird how people react to Driveline now. And I think it's important for us to maybe explain what Driveline does and has done in baseball over the time of its existence, and also for people like Bill to clarify that there are several people from Driveline still employed in the organization. So the philosophies and teachings and things that are important there are still very much a part of the Red Sox organization. So, Trevor, can you help us understand what Driveline actually brings to the table and maybe disassemble some of the fear that very regular folks like Bill Simmons appear to have about Driveline at this point?
I just generally think this comes down to a lack of knowing what they're doing there, like what is happening on a day-to-day basis. And if I could make it as simple as possible, they're just there and they're doing a bunch of baseball experiments and seeing what produces good outcomes. So people who come in and be like, I have this problem, I can't hit the ball hard enough, I don't throw hard enough, my slider won't move, whatever it is, and they're like, okay, what are a bunch of different ways to attack that problem, and then what things actually work, and then how do we teach it? That's just what it is. It's just research. It's a research and development lab, which has a huge side where you can then work out and actually participate and be there as a player as well. There's tons of guys up here. It's in Kent, Washington. It's 45 minutes south of me. I've gone there 3 times. I've gotten assessed both in their hitting and their pitching lab. I've been on the motion capture software. I'm building my own with the same exact equipment they have. Like, just because, for me, I always respond to this, well, it just comes down to when someone says, hey, I think you're doing this, or your hip's firing too early, or whatever, sometimes it's nice to say, oh, and also we got it on slow motion and your hips are firing to like literally empirically. So now you have 2 different ways of approaching the same problem, but we're all trying to explain the game the same. We're doing the same thing where the goal is the same. Get the best version of yourself. Now, is there an element of like efficiency that's become a problem that people don't like? Yes. I think that we're over efficient. We're so obsessed with efficiency in everything. Just look at the world. Like, if you can become the most efficient, then everything, all the problems we solved, there's diminishing returns at some point. And so sometimes that bleeds into where you're like, just follow the data, nothing else matters. That's also not true. Things in baseball happen that have never happened before all the time. Like guys or players do things that they've never done before all the time. You can only predict based on what they've done in the past for so long because development's a thing. So I think that gets a frustration, but it's a surface level thing. I think that people think that when you hear about Driveline, you immediately think, oh, we're overthinking this. But yeah, that's absolutely possible. But it's also not happening at the same time. So it's just like anything else. Sometimes you're wrong. And just because it's Driveline doesn't mean that it's that one thing's being more valued than the other on the baseline of things. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I just think that with all credit to Bill, he took his media personality hat off and put on his Boston sports fan hat, and just, you got to be like, things aren't going well, we got someone to blame it on. This feels good. I love this.
In the immortal words of Drax the Destroyer, why is Driveline? I think that what's going on is that they are they're evidence-based and they're constraints-based. And, what I mean when I say this is, we do things like, we've done drills like the towel drill as pitchers for, since we were kids. And we do things like the janitor drill. Has been a drill. It's been around for a long time. That's one where you kind of pitch like Nomo, where you show your back to the plate and then reach back about as far as you can and then turn around, right? So, what did they do? They tested both of these, and they have the biomechanics, and I've done those too. I've done the biomech capture there. And what you can do is you can test a guy, and then you can have him do the drill for a couple of weeks, and then you can test him, and you can say, did something change? And with what you find is, for example, with the janitor drill, you do augment your hip shoulder separation, which is something that's related to velocity. So, hey, that's a good one. When you do the towel drill, you see no change to extension, no change to hip shoulder separation, no change to the things that we value. We don't see any use to it. So you could do the towel drill if you feel like it, but we're not going to advise you to do the towel drill because it's not going to really do much for you in terms of, biomechanical, the stuff that we value. So that's part of it. Constraint space also shows up in this, which is to say, just what I'm saying is, like, instead of telling a guy throw harder, you say, okay, well, move your body in this way, or I'm going to create a drill that I'm going to create a situation where your body's going to figure this out on its own, right? So for a hitter, if you want them to hit inside, you could put water bottles down and or something that, where they have to step, they have to move in a certain way. You constrain them. You create drills that physically constrain them, and their body has to solve that constraint and do the movement that you want them to do, right? So all of this is based on research in the end. And so I think it's pretty hard to say, oh, that's bad. I mean, you're like, do you want to research and know that the drills you're doing are doing the things you want them to? Yeah, yes, I want to know that I'm not just wasting my time doing this stuff, And so I would say that, I don't know if this is controversial. I would say that this decision by Kyle Boddy, from his camp, it sounds like he's got other opportunities in baseball that he wants to pursue. I know for a fact that he's been considered for very top jobs, and so that might be on the table for him. But in this case, the phone calls that he's making, the advice he was giving Breslow, I would say that this move will mean nothing for the Red Sox. I think this will have no effect. Is Driveline still up and down baseball? Yes, their director of hitting was from Driveline. Their major league hitting coach was from Driveline. Andrew Bailey, he's not technically Driveline, but he speaks the same language as the Driveline types. He implemented the massive reduction in four-seam fastball usage in Boston that Kyle Boddy's been talking about forever as a thing that teams should do. So there's hundreds of Driveline coaches throughout baseball. There are hundreds of players in major league organizations and on the field that have gone to Driveline. All the other places that are not Driveline have very similar approaches. They may have some small differences. Maybe you can criticize the feel of some of these coaches that have come through Driveline. That's something that I've heard from different places. Kyle himself is an acquired taste for some. Like, he's a very sort of brash guy, and so he believes in what he believes in, and so. You could talk about feel and interpersonal relationships if you want, but they're not all cookie cutter. I know John Soteropoulos, that dude, hitters love him. So if we go back to the Red Sox for a second, what went wrong? They are top 10 in bat speed. They're top 10 in Stuff Plus. They're top 10 in K-BB. They're top 10 in Sierra. So some of the process stuff is still pretty good. Why they're even though they're top 10 in bat speed, they're not good at hard hit. They're not good at barrels. So that says to me, is there something going on in approach that's not great? I would also say that Roman Anthony being hurt all year has not been good for their offense. Maybe the Caleb Durbin. I mean, maybe you were right, DVR. The Caleb Durbin trade might have been a bad one. I kind of like that for them. I think that they they've skimped a little on payment, on payroll, So like, this offense may have been built faultily, So, there's some mistakes that were made maybe in building this offense. There was some investment they should have made probably in making it better. And I also think this offense is better than it's shown so far this season. So it's I think things are way more complicated than Kyle Boddy was bad for this organization. Driveline is bad, good that he's gone.
Most things are, and I'm also not surprised that, science and research would be under attack in this forum, not our show, but the broader forum, because it's under attack everywhere right now, right? Why wouldn't it be under attack in baseball?
Remember last year when they overachieved and then they made the playoffs and they did all exactly the same stuff? Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like baseball sometimes is about execution and it's about being in the right place at the right time and doing the right things at the right time. And that's why we have so many stats, because we have to tell so many different stories. There's one thing that touched on with like the towel drill and things. And I know that this gentleman is not involved in this conversation, but he has, I think, said some of the points which are good to a level, and like John Smoltz says some similar things, like about how like the lack of teaching feel, and I like to kind of put more context in that, and I think that's where this comes from too. It's like a, hey, we're not teaching people how to pitch anymore, we're not teaching them this or think or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that is something that becomes a byproduct when it's not done well. But what we are doing is associating an outcome or empirical evidence with a feeling. So like, you're like, when I feel this, I know that this thing is happening. That question mark's gone. And that builds confidence in more pitchers, for example, than it hurts. Now, do I run into guys all the time who are like looking at the TrackMan every single pitch, no matter what? They're obsessed with it? Yes, absolutely. But like, that's not very good coaching. The coach needs to establish that you need to take it away sometimes. Be all right, what are you feeling? Do you think that moved that way? And then you go check. Like, that's the next level. And that is stuff that Driveline does that I don't think they get credit for. And I think the coaches that come from there have that baseline. So it's about, again, you're trying to teach feel so that feeling wise, I know what it feels like to throw the pitches I need to throw. And then you can do all the learning up here, because you have to dial that other stuff in first before you can learn the things. So like a lot of this criticism is like 24-year-olds who are in the big leagues. I'm like, hey, like when you played, 24-year-olds didn't know what the hell they were doing either. So like we're comparing them to 35-year-olds who've been around for a long time. And if you go look at the guys who are 35 now who went to Driveline, Shohei Ohtani, they know how to pitch. So it's almost as if experience does matter and no one's saying it doesn't. So like, I think that's a lot of times, sometimes what a criticism comes for, like that is taking a back seat. And I know on the face it looks that way, but just know the overarching goal is like, no, we're trying to teach both things in parallel. And I'm trying, me specifically, whenever I got the Driveline data attached to it, it made me learn that so much faster and it actually lock into my head. And that's how I was put together. And so I didn't make real changes until people were giving me numbers. And that's why I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know if these analogies hold up, but I think about it from soccer. It's like technical and tactical are different things. Like your technical things are things you're working on in baseball in that lab setting. Feel, grip, individual pitches. Tactical is the problem-solving aspect, like applying it in a situation where it's not just throwing in front of the camera anymore. It's throwing to a person that's trying to hit it in front of a crowd of 40,000 people.
Competitive. Details versus competing. Like that's my two modes. But yeah.
I got a question for you guys, though. Is it possible? I know we've had like sports psychologists. I mean, John Smoltz actually went to a sports psychologist. It was a big deal for him in his career. I know that coaches can coach approach. I know that like that's part of it. But isn't that the tactical, the approach, that part, isn't that mostly taught by game experience? Isn't that something you learn on the field? Isn't it really, really hard to give that in a coaching environment?
Basically, the coaching is like you're getting feedback from the game. Then you're coaching, and like it's like coaches that are there for the game. Like these are things that where that feel is learned. But you are right. Your experience being in a game and running into a situation and then how you then respond to that situation is a lot of John Smoltz's things that he values very highly. And he is right. That is very, 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 very important. And I do think he is also right that sometimes guys revert to the numbers to try to fix that stuff when that's not you're supposed to put that aside. Your body's supposed to know how to do the things that produce the numbers that you want. Now you need to be able to execute it exactly. Now, where am I throwing it? What am I doing? And why? When am I throwing it? All that stuff needs to happen up here. This isn't going away. And maybe he is right that young pitchers are like skipping this almost or thinking this isn't as important. But those young pitchers would be wrong. Like they need both. You do need both. And but I don't want young pitchers to also not give the numbers a chance because they hear that it doesn't matter, because that's not true either. So it's you need both things, and they need to be done together well and communicated that way. Those guys are the best pitchers in the major leagues, guys who have a very, very good understanding of what they do well, what they don't, and why.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of the fundamental concepts of why math teachers would make us show our work when we took math classes, right? Like you need to understand the process of solving the problem to be able to apply the solution in a different setting. Like that's to me.
When we're not there and you're in the world and you need to solve a problem, you got to be able to fish. It's a new way to teach you how to fish. And there's, I just happen to be a massive nerd, and I was before I went in. So it just clicked immediately for me. And I understand that it doesn't do that for other guys. But guess what? Chris Sale doesn't care at all. But that works for Chris Sale, and it always has worked for Chris Sale. He found his thing. It worked. He's still doing it. It still works. He doesn't need numbers to tell him why it works because
it's amazing. Yeah, he hasn't changed anything. It's
his evidence is so strong he doesn't need it, and that's fine. That's good. Good. I'm glad he found his thing. He does his thing. He operates in the way he operates, and it still works. By all means, ignore it then.
Yeah.
Awesome. But if you're 19, you might as well explore it. He explored it, found out it didn't mean anything. You need to explore it. Don't avoid it because it has a negative connotation.
I want to send Bill the Driveline and just see,
He would actually probably be fascinated, and he'd have
it's
a good time.
It's really fun, dude. I mean, they have a good vibe when you're in there. I mean, it's just like, let's figure out what we can figure out. We have all these toys, let's play with our toys and try
engineering
to
brains,
stuff.
man.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you want that in your corner? Like that seems silly to not think that could help you and will help you over time. We are going to hit a quick break. When we come back, we're going to nerd out some more. We've been talking about missed distance leaderboards is something we have wanted on this show for a long time. Those dropped last week. We're going to break it down from the pitching side when we come back. This week on Starkville, Jerry Dipoto joined Jason Stark and Doug Glanville and explained the organization's philosophy of trying to sign 3 contracts with the player over the course of their career.
Our goal and I said this to Colt when we were, going through this, our goal is we do 3 contracts with Colt. We draft him and we give him his bonus. We do this extension. And then when we get to the end of this extension and he's right in the middle of what should be the prime of his career, we get one more bite at the apple to make him a lifetime Mariner. It's a similar strategy to what we employed with Julio Rodriguez. It's the same conversation we had with Cal Raleigh. Albeit in Julio's case, he had 3 or 4 months of major league experience.
Check out the full interview with Mariners president of baseball operations, Jerry Dipoto, this Saturday on Starkville. Welcome back to Rates and Barrels. Miss distance leaderboards are now available at Baseball Savant. We've had a little over a week to dig into that data. It's something that I know Trevor and Eno have wanted for a long time. And as I talked about with Jed for a little bit last week, Wednesday, we have the ability to see overall miss distances on the leaderboard, but then we can look at the individual components. Did the bat miss above or below? Did it miss inside or outside? They refer to that as tied up, being inside, outside if a hitter flails at a pitch. And then, of course, there's timing. There's early and late. So there's a lot of different ways to create that distance. And I wanted to know generally, Eno, as you got this information, what was the first thing you wanted to do with it? What was your first thought as you saw this become available at Baseball Savant last week?
it defaults to hitters. And I was like, I don't know, man, this is a pitching stat for me. So when I go to that leaderboard, I haven't even really looked much at the hitters. I've flipped it over to pitchers right away. Maybe that's my internal bias. And I just thought this could be capturing something that Stuff Plus doesn't. And so I made this leaderboard that is the best miss distance, and I limited it to starters and to pitch type. And I wanted to throw Stuff Plus on there and the whiff rates on there and the miss distance. And there's a lot of intriguing names on here with average-ish Stuff Plus. I mean, the number one pitcher, Andrew Abbott, with his curve, has a 9-inch miss distance, a 20% whiff rate, and a 90 Stuff Plus. I just love that he's number one. That caught my attention right away. And there's a bunch of names on here with average or below average. I mean, 105 Stuff Plus for Ryan Weathers sweeper. That's actually a below average number for sweepers. So, you have to get all the way down to Cade Cavalli's sweeper and Trey Savage's splitter, which are 9th and 10th on the list I've provided you, to find pitches with above average Stuff Plus. So we got a lot of average Stuff Plus pitches. Kyle Leahy has 2 pitches that have that are in the top 20 in terms of miss distance. And Shota's on this list, Ryan Weathers, Mike Burrows, Anthony Kay. So, I think this is a really intriguing list. And what I'm suggesting is that this could help us better understand how arsenals fit together and give us a better understanding of the relationship between pitches. Because if you get a really big miss distance on your curve like Andrew Abbott does, it's not only the curveball that makes you have that big miss distance. It's what they thought it was.
Right. That's why the multiple variables, like the timing, is thrown off in addition to probably swinging over it more often than not. Like that's just going to be the way a curveball works. But as you see something like that, okay, so is this the explanation? Arsenal effects? Like I know there's been some work done in the last couple of years on this. Does this explain Andrew Abbott? Like, is this finally the thing that's like, yes, this is how he's getting results that are better than projections, better than stuff, and better than expectations?
We have more now, so we can better explain it, I think.
Yeah. I would just suggest that, that this could be used to figure some more stuff out. Like, I'm not necessarily suggesting that just this alone, but when you look at up and down on miss distance, there are some names on there that overproduce their stuff, even their strikeout rates. So I find it intriguing in that way.
Looking at your leaderboard, I wrote down 3 kind of big things that just in general about the whole release of all the data. I genuinely think we're about to see another big jump in terms of development for both sides, because I think what we've been operating from in terms of developing a hitter and developing a pitcher is from the beginning of so the pitcher is operating from what is the result of the pitch, like what is an outcome, and then what did I do, what is an outcome. Now what is an outcome, and like how did that outcome happen is also now layered in. So now the result has a lot more context. So for me, number one, it's going to help with deception like my deception stats, because now I can start weighting how far they're missing, how much it's moving off of the barrel. Another benefit, like for a hitter, for example, remember we got the big torpedo bat thing. Literally what they were testing is where do you hit the ball in the barrel all the time, and then changing where your barrel was. And so like if you're constantly getting jammed, you get jammed all the time, you're just looking as a hitter, jammed all the time, they're going to give you a torpedo bat. Like you're going to try that first. Like that's the low-hanging fruit here. There's a ton of low-hanging fruit like that. But the really cool thing was specifically about the leaderboard you gave is like Soriano's four-seam fastball, right? Is like overperforming in terms of miss. It's metrics, meaning it's in a vacuum. We can determine, like, is this pitch just nasty in a vacuum, or is it in correlation with the rest of their stuff? We can like better identify the things that are happening because there's some big old outliers out here. So then with him, for example, we can say it's very clear that this is there's a correlation here. When maybe there's a crazy stuff plus and a crazy whiff, that pitch you could just throw it every single time, Mason Miller slider, and you'll probably be all right. Like that stuff's easier, I think. It just really nails it home and makes it's pretty freaking clear. Is a big one. But in that same realm, also, I try to archetype hitters and pitchers. So I'd be like, when they do it, they want to get these type of outcomes. And then you can say north-south guy. You're like, cool, this guy's a north-south guy. So you would probably, and he throws hard. So probably you'd want to have a good amount of like being late and a lot of swinging under fastballs, a lot of swinging over breaking balls. The fascinating thing about Mason Miller, you would think he's got a bunch of late, a bunch of swinging under. Really not. No, he's got way more swinging over that slider. Everyone's missing it by crazy because he throws the fastball. It's both.
They're early. They're early on the slider.
They're early on the slider because they're gearing up so much for 102. And it's very obvious that's what's going on, but he's maximized it. Like it's obvious. We see that. We're like, that's probably what's happening. And then we go look and we're like, it's very clearly what's happening. And there's value in that. But then there's guys like this, and I talked to Petriello about this right when he released it. His favorite one is Tyler Rogers. Tyler Rogers is good every year. Everyone's like, it's because he drags his knuckles on the ground when he throws the ball. Yes, that is why. But the funny thing is, the guys with the most pitches that people are late on is Tyler Rogers. 55% of fastballs, they're late on it. And they're swinging under his slider at a crazy rate. And on average, they're 12 milliseconds late, which is also the highest on a sinker. And he throws the slowest in the league. This is a fascinating example of like, why is that happening? It turns out it's pretty simple. One, hitters are automated. They just are. They try to make themselves as automatic as possible because conscious decisions take longer than unconscious. And there is no automating yourself for Tyler Rogers. You can't see anything like that enough to where your decision is becoming automatic.
You can't project it.
And he's the only guy in the league. There's only one, and it's him that you can't put on the traject machine either. Like it doesn't go low enough, so you can't even go get reps. So we're gonna see this gap between him and the rest of the league increase probably because he's so unique and they can't simulate him. And so now when you face him, you're standing there like, I have to make conscious decisions every time I face Tyler Rogers. Everything has to be in the front of my mind, and that's slower, so they're late.
And he also pitches backwards. I mean, he kind of pitches off the slider. He throws the rising slider in, and he throws the fastball off of that.
So and his fastball goes down and his breaking ball goes up, which is the exact opposite. So there's no way to prepare yourself to make a subconscious decision. So you have to make a conscious decision. And that the science is clear. Those thoughts are much, much slower. So everyone's late.
Yeah. I looked at Abbott on the Baseball Prospectus Arsenal stats. He does not stand out in a lot of them, but the one that he does stand out in, where he's top 50, is in movement spread. And the curveball here having a huge differential. What I would suggest is that we can turn the dials on that movement spread type number a little bit. So it's not just movement spread; it's movement spread from a pitch that looks like his fastball. So his curveball must look like his fastball until the decision moment. You'll see these, they have these visualizations at Baseball Prospectus. And if I can find the right one for Abbott, I'll throw it up on the screen. But, what we're talking about is to the decision point, how closely grouped are their movements? And then after the decision point, at which point the batter has decided to swing, after that decision point, how far apart of their movement, how far apart is the movement on the pitches, right? That's got to be what we're seeing in miss distance is they thought it was a fastball. They give the fastball swing. It's a curveball, 9-inch difference in that's how you get the big swing miss distances. So, I think that's going to be huge. And I think, even stuff like using the early and versus late timing and the bad swing, what's it called?
Flawed swing
percentage. I think that can give a better sense of, for example, and this is another Mike Pietrello example. This year Dylan Cease is throwing the changeup more. The changeup itself doesn't have great stuff. Plus, it's hard, but doesn't have great movement profile. It's not the best pitch in the world, but throwing it more has led to more late swings on his fastball. So, and I think this is one of the most difficult things about studying pitching right now is that we've studied pitching against the backdrop of old school pitching, which is like fastball and everything off of the fastball, and we have this idea that tunneling is the fastball and then the other thing comes off of it. And the problem right now is that pitchers are trying to randomize everything. So like I have 3 fastballs and I have 5 pitches and I'm trying to throw everything 20% of the time or whatever it is. And hitters themselves are now guessing back more, and they're doing the traject and they're doing the percentile, like what you talk about, Trevor, is like, oh, there's our 60% somewhere. I'm zeroing in on that, right? So the hitters are zeroing in on that, anticipating. In the words of MLB The Show, they're ambush hitting. They're saying, oh, I think this is going to be a high fastball, so I'm going to really locate in on that. And so therefore, you can tunnel multiple pitches off of each other. And we've talked about this over time. So that's the difficult thing, even with these stats, is that Dylan Cease's changeup, his fastball is tunneling off his changeup.
Yeah.
The one you throw more.
Yeah, does it make much sense?
The one they're anticipating is the thing that creates the tunnel. So it can be the slider, it can be the changeup, it could be
right.
Just fastballs and changeup just naturally are closer in movement with deviation, and that's why
it's probably late on 0-2 fastballs, right? Because they're like, here comes the changeup or the slider. So you've pushed it to 60% changeups and sliders, so they're thinking this is going to be low and slow, and now he throws the fastball and then they're late on it. So there's all this anticipation plus the randomization plus the way that arsenals fit together. I think is difficult to study pitching, because we need to move on to new models, which are sort of the interactivity, maybe sequencing, something that we've said doesn't exist, we need to look more into that, because that sequencing is going to affect the player's anticipation and start to talk about, can he, like Trevor Rogers last year when it was really working, was tunneling his changeup and his sweeper off of each other, and he was working on those 2 pitches. And whenever anybody anticipated sweeper, he threw changeup, and it's not working this year. So there's a whole question of like what's predictive, what can keep working, what can work for a little bit. But I think these are going to be weapons for us. And I think once again, though, they're going to be weapons for us in understanding how to prevent runs a little bit more than how to create runs.
I do think flawed swing percentage is just interesting. It's the percentage of all swings in which the batter whiffs, and the swing is not any of lined up, centered, or on time. Nothing worked. They just weren't close. And most of the leaderboards are broken out by individual pitches or pitch types, which I think is the kind of like default right way to think about it. But I combined all the pitches to see like who generates the most flawed swings total across all their pitches. I am not at all surprised that it's still Mason Miller among relievers, among all pitchers, at 23%. Reliever leaderboard is Mason Miller, Fernando Cruz at 20%.
Dylan Lee, who does not have a great stuff plus.
Dylan Lee at 17%, Andres Munoz at 16%, and Giovanni Moran at 15%, all in the top 5. So a couple surprises there with Lee and Moran. And then the starter group, Dylan Cease, number 1, 13%. Christopher Sanchez, okay, that's making sense, 12%. He's number 2. Oh no, Tetsuya Imai is on here at 12%. Chris Sale also up at 12%. And then Grant Holmes rounds out the top 5. That was my, hey, wait, Grant Holmes? Like, what's going on with Grant Holmes?
Holmes' slider is also, or one of his pitches, I think it's a slider, is on the miss distance leaderboard.
Curveball, isn't it?
Yeah, the curveball.
He have a really good curveball.
Yeah,
I think that's
actually what he came up with. He came up with the curveball. He learned the slider afterwards.
Maybe that's what it is, or it's like a slurvy. It's the harder, bigger version.
I'm sorry, Dylan Lee has great stuff plus, but he does not have a great velo. So I've been asked, why does he have good stuff plus? Because he only throws 93, but there's something in the way the pitches fit together.
This is fascinating because of everyone's doing it in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. Like what is Mason Miller doing, getting that for? Every single guy that faces him is guessing because you have to. There's no reacting. There's
he's
no
50-50 on a 102 fastball
pitches,
and a 90-mile-an-hour slider.
And he has it dialed in. He's confident in both, to where he's also guessing pitch to pitch. It doesn't matter. Like he doesn't have a pattern because he didn't need to. And that when he doesn't know until he's throwing the pitch, you're not going to know. And guys are guessing, and they're guessing wrong a lot. And that's why it looks really bad. Fernando Cruz has that weird, there's a little deception to his delivery, and his splitters are slow. And it's just like you don't anticipate that. So he has a pitch.
He's pitching backwards.
and he's
pitching backwards. He's like pitching off the splitter.
Andres Munoz has a running four seam, and he's flying off the mound, so he's got that whole body going, and he throws really hard. Again, guessing. They're just guessing. You have to guess.
Is surprising to me. What's up with Moran?
But Dylan Lee tunnels probably incredibly well and has really good movement on his pitches. That's a different version. Same thing. I love the Amai thing though. Amai is weird because his stuff is so bad it's good. Like,
it's so weird.
Everyone's like, well, how is his slider moving like that? I'm seeing a slider spin and it's not doing anything close to what a slider I'm used to seeing, and you can't prepare for it. So he's getting really, I would say, like Mason Miller's fooling dudes. Amai is confusing dudes. They're just like, what was that? Like, what's happening? That's not supposed to be how that works. And so that's what he's getting. And I genuinely, and then Chris Sale is, again, he's so, it's really hard to be comfortable against a guy that throws like that and that hard with that good of a slider that you have to protect against. They're guessing, and he throws hard. So like a lot of guessing and a lot of weirdness. And then with scattered in one really, really good pitch.
What do you guys think of the very bottom of this leaderboard, the lowest pitchers in flawed swing percentage, right? You have Javier Assad and Miles Michaelis, 2%, Eric Fetty, Justin Robleski getting really good results right now, Jesse Schultens, Tobias Myers, Simeon Richardson. No surprises really there, just in terms of like the stuff overall. Brandon Sproat's down there. Ryan Nelson's down there. Like I think the names that would stand out to me would be someone like Sproat. I'm like, this guy's got what I would say is a pretty good foundation to work with, but isn't making it work yet.
I have to do one thing for Sproat. I think mostly the list is low velo.
Mostly, yeah.
So you can get more comfortable against somebody who has low velo, right? Sproat has maybe the highest, huh?
Dustin May's down here. Brian Wu down here, 4%.
Okay, so with Wu, May, and Sproat, this may fly, which is like inconsistent command across a group of pitches. I know Wu has great command of his fastballs, but I don't think that he has always great command of his sweeper. And so maybe there's a little bit of predictive quality. Like people are guessing right against these people, right? That's what we're saying. If you have fewer flawed swings, they're guessing right. So, you can still get sawed off by a Wu sinker when you thought it was the four seam. So, that doesn't show up in flawed swing, right? Flawed swing is just about timing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Flawed swing is just like you had no chance of doing anything because nothing was right. It doesn't mean that like the inability to generate them makes you hopeless. It just means you're probably not going to rack up massive K rates with a low flawed swing percentage.
And that lines up with Wu. Do we ever see Wu go out there and go 6 innings or 7 innings, punch out 12? No, he goes 7 innings, punches out 5, walks nobody. Yeah. And is very economical. That's the way he pitches. He gets weak contact, so guys are up there like he's going to throw this in the zone. I'm not.
It's going to be a fastball a lot.
It's going to be a fastball probably, and I'm not worried about my ability to hit his off speed stuff. And so he gives up contact, but he's just got such good command that it doesn't matter. You look up and you have 0 runs.
And Sproat's on there, I think, for a different reason, which is that he has very inconsistent command across his pitches. And I would say the pitch that he commands the best is his cutter. It's not necessarily his best pitch. And so I bet you that if he gets into situations where he needs to throw a strike, they're gonna feel like, it's the cutter.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me one bit if he finds if we check back in 1 year and that number he's jumped quite a bit up the list. That could just be lack of experience, not haven't really found his way to be dominant. I would say like if we compared this stuff from like Derek Skubal before he Tommy John versus after he learned the new changeup, I bet you his flawed swing miss has changed quite a bit.
There are a couple, like if the batter's ahead against righties, he goes to the sinker a lot, 45%. When the pitcher's ahead, he goes to the slider 45%. So there are some things where he's falling into predictable patterns, I think.
I think there were some other surprise relievers that we unearthed while getting ready for this episode. Did Tim Herron jump off the page for you in one of the leaderboards?
I didn't get it at all. He doesn't leap off the page in almost any other way. I mean, he averages 93.8 on the sinker, which is, below average for a reliever. He's kind of a 33 arm angle east-west guy. You look at the movement patterns, gyro slider, fastball sinker, nothing really leaps off the page for me. But the one thing that we did find pretty interesting is that he's a 4-pitch guy to both hands. He basically throws the least he throws any pitch is 15% forcing fastballs to left-handers. Otherwise, it's pretty much a 25-25-25 where he could throw any pitch any count. So he's kind of a starting pitcher as a reliever. And I think that probably has a little bit of something to do why where did we find him? We found him on the flawed swing percentage, right?
Yeah, I think that's where he popped up, maybe even on missed distance for one pitch. But I'm thinking about a reliever with all those pitches, even if none of them are excellent in a vacuum, probably harder to ambush, and that's probably reflected in the home run rate, right? For his career, I mean, a .67 homers per nine. Like he's walking guys, but he's not giving up damage with the long ball. I would say that's kind of part of what makes it work for Herron.
Yeah, and a lot of like highish whips. Like, sometimes people put the ball in play. He walks them. He'll create some traffic, but he won't give up the big homer. So he's kind of at like an ideal, like 5th or 6th reliever. I mean, it's damning with faint praise, I guess. But like, it could be very useful for him to come into a game where you're down by 1 or something. Maybe there's some runners on, and maybe sometimes he makes it worse, but a lot of times he'll clean it up. He'll keep you in the game. So I think that's where you find him on the closer depth chart over at Fangraphs. If you look for Cleveland, Herron is the 5th guy. But he is also, sometimes their best lefty. So, a 5th guy who can play as good as your 3rd guy. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's good. It's good work if you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to put a complete bullpen together. Someone that's just different. Comes from the left side. You don't quite know what you're going to get. Can effectively get you through an inning a little earlier in the game if needed. We're going to hit one more break. There's a really interesting piece that Ben Clemens wrote. We should account for inherited runners better. And as soon as I saw that headline, I thought of Trevor May, my only friend who's ever called an official scorer to complain about a scoring decision. We'll break it down when we come back. Welcome back to Rates and Barrels. Another good one from Ben Clemens over at Fangraphs. The headline got me for sure. We should account for inherited runners better. And the first thing I thought was, when you leave the game, like wherever the runners are on base, like partial credit should be given to the guy that put them on, and partial credit should be given to the guy that cashed them in, right? Does that seem fair, Trevor? Are you on board with moving this forward a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's. You see so many guys out there that like get 2 outs but leave a guy on first and second, and they're a little bit annoyed with themselves, but like most of the time they're like, let me strand my own runners, because there is no worse feeling than watching another guy come in and then just cash him in, and then that guy also feels bad. So it's just like a not a fun situation for anybody. But I also think the ability to strand runners is so wildly valuable. And it's one of those things that, even though it's like when you get a bigger sample size, like guys that are doing this, like Danny Colum is one of the best in the league, and he's been one of the best in the league every single year at this. Never mentioned by anybody how good he is at coming in with guys in second, third with 1 out and not giving up a run. It is incredible. And that kind of stuff is so valuable for momentum swings in games. And it's just not ever mentioned. And so that's why I'm always looking at this stuff and think it's so valuable, because the guys who are good at it make an effort to be good at it. And the guys who aren't don't care. And that makes you a bad teammate.
This is the bad teammate metric we've been looking for.
Yeah, this is it.
What I like about it is that we use, if we could use this to change the ERA for relievers, we still look at ERA. It's still something we put up on the board, and for relievers, it can be wildly out of touch with what has actually happened because of this. And so when he points out that Alex Vesia, could have an ERA that's like a full run lower. Based on this, or that Grant Anderson could have a ERA that's a full run lower if you consider what he's done with inherited runners. And Fernando Cruz could have a ERA that starts with a 0. If you look at this, then you kind of think, well, these seem like really underrated relievers that probably have something either to do with mindset or something about their stuff or command, maybe. Like they're not going to make it worse. They come out of here. Brant Herter, I love this list of undervalued relievers. One thing that he points out in the piece Ben Clemens does is not very predictive. And so I wonder, I guess I can figure out why, is just because there's got to be a lot of noise in like what happens in that moment, right? Like do you get the ground ball that gets turned into a double play, or does your defense muff the pitch, muff the ground ball and not get the double play? Just the sequencing of events. Do you get the homer before the walk or the walk before the homer? Just stuff like that. So I guess I can see why it wouldn't be predictive, but I think this could have some value, even if it's not predictive, in just allowing us to appreciate better how good these pitchers are, and maybe even for for maybe an old school manager or just a manager to realize, like somebody like Calvin Fauché is on the other list and Gus Varland, that they may be worse than their ERA. It makes them appear, And so I feel like this is something that might be internalized by managers, that they know this. They knew this before they even looked at the page, because they live it. But I think it could be useful for us in terms of, we have awards for relievers. We have 2 Baseball Writers Association awards for the best relievers. So I think that this is something that's meaningful in terms of appraising what you've done, even if it doesn't necessarily predict the future.
Yeah, I love a good reliever award. I'm glad this finally been added, because a reliever winning the Cy Young seems impossible, even with Mason Miller doing ridiculous things. So you might as well bucket that group separately and have an award accordingly. I think it's easy to take a quick look at the win probability added leaderboard for relievers and then see that, hey, some of these guys are actually being rewarded correctly, because I was thinking about game scores recently and wishing we had something for relievers. And it turns out we do. That's what win probability added basically does. It was created in 1970. It got more popular 20 years ago, and it's right there on Fangraphs. It's in front of your face, and you can look at the leaderboard. You'll see Louis Varland, number 1, Cade Smith, number 2, Mason
Well, there
Miller,
are a lot of the
3.
same guys on here. Fernando
A lot
Cruz,
of same guys, but
Gordon
like Fernando
Gracefo.
Cruz is 5. Yeah, Kevin Kelly's popped up on a few different leaderboards now. He's number 9. Gordon Gracefo,
Vesia's
number
14.
10. Yeah, Vesia's up there. So I do think like win probability added is
Just
like
so
a
that people
sneaky
know
good stat.
what the similarities in approach here is. Win probability added says, what's the win probability of the team when you entered the game, and what is it when you left? So did you add to it? And so that will capture inherited runners, right? Because if you let the inherited runner score, your win probability goes down. You've made it worse.
So you get huge swings if you bases loaded, no outs, and you strand them all. Huge swing and win probability added if you get out of that inning. Yeah.
And so what the difference in approach, I guess, for Ben was he looked at the run expectancy, when the pitcher came in, and tried to use run expectancy. So this is run expectancy and win probability are very much related.
Yeah.
So
very similar.
I like win probability, and I think if I ever get a vote for reliever of the year, I will be looking at win probability added.
I'm gonna start doing my own. That's what it is. just a full reliever award. Actually, to be honest, I've been working on a publicly facing thing for deception and things. The number one thing I just want to do is the first page is going to just be for relievers, and the best ones are doing who's on the longest scoreless streak. If you're wondering, it's Luke Weaver right now. These guys don't know that unless they're told it, or they're watching a Mets game and they say it when he comes in, which is how I found out. And now I'm like, there's some guys who like haven't given up a run in a month and no one knows. But I love win probability added. That's a great example of it. And I just want to point out one thing, just call back to maybe when we finally talked about deception like 6 weeks ago or something, that Kevin Kelly, remember he was number 5 on that list. We're like, the results really haven't showed up yet. And they're starting to show up a little bit, which is cool.
Yeah.
And he's a tough guy to get those runs across on. So just worth pointing that out. I think that this is also points at guys, I think even from I don't talk about fantasy context that much here, but like next guy up, you're completely right, by the way, on managers intuitively known. They call you, I was once called a top stepper, which made me very mad.
That's not a compliment.
In hindsight, he's right. And that was in 15-16 under Molitor. But Molly was a super old
why is
school
that
guy.
bad? What I thought
Top steppers means your leash is short. They're like on the top. They're ready to get out.
He's
Nervous.
on the top.
Yeah, like they're ready. They're ready to
You
come
make
get
them
you.
nervous. You make them nervous. I feel confident. I'm proud to say that I shirked that reputation later in my career, and he also told me that once. So he said, "Hey, nice. You were young, but you were a top stepper. You're not a top stepper anymore. Great, awesome." But like they know, they remember when things didn't go well, or like when you're out there, we tend to give up runs. Eventually, whether it's you're in there or not, and that gives you a shorter leash that pulls you, means that you come out of the games with guys on base more often, which means you might give up inherited runners more often. Like that has a lot to do with it. How your manager, how much he likes you and trusts you is a huge part of it. But this gives us an opportunity. Like the guys who are good at this probably are not top steppers for their team, which then would say if their closer got hurt or something, the chances that guy gets an opportunity to get a save is probably higher than other guys who maybe have better stuff or are younger. They might get like for a Terry Francona or for some of the older school guys. The other guy might get a chance before.
Actually, I was looking at
Tony Santillan. Look at him. He's the more veteran guy. They're giving him the opportunities, though there are probably guys with better stuff in the.
We were looking at that bullpen. One. Was it the guy
example.
with no command? The guy with the big fastball and no command.
Yeah,
I was looking at this. Yeah. No. There's a younger guy.
Maxwell. But he's up.
Oh, and by the way,
Kelly. A lot.
Kelly's pulling the Rogers, dude. I love this. Kelly's sweeper has like 8 inches more rise than his sinker.
That probably accounts for why he's so deceptive. What?
That is really weird.
Yeah, the old 1 degree arm angle. If you haven't seen Kevin Kelly, if you just need the visual, it's just straight off the side. Unreal.
Sidearm.
Yeah, nothing moves the way you'd expect it to. As you look at the baseball savant plots, you always see the shaded circles of where the pitch would be expected to go, and then you see the actual dots of where it does go. And those dots, I don't know if everyone knows this. I didn't even realize this until recently. Those are clickable. If you click those dots on the movement profile, it brings you to the video of that pitch, which is awesome.
That is very cool.
Yeah. I couldn't believe how many times I'd looked at those charts and not clicked on a pitch.
Wow. Really?
Embarrassing.
That's funny. That's funny.
Embarrassing. It was just right there the whole time. I'd go over to the search thing and be like, Kevin Kelly, sweeper.
Let's go look
and I
up
would
that specific pitch.
Yeah. It's like, you idiot, just click on it. Like, just try something. Try to break something for once in your life.
Yeah. I just watched a 77 mile an hour sweeper from Kelly up and into Wade Meckler. And when I paused the screen, Wade Meckler is looking out at the field going, what the hell was that?
Reaction you want.
Yeah.
One last small story before we go. Just as Trevor graduated from the top stepper status, I graduated from propeller hat status. According to one of my friends, I had a friend that came over to hang out last weekend and see the house I live in for the first time, and goes, wow, yeah, you really graduated from propeller hat status. He's my friend from my old days at RotoWire. He was the guy that hired me as an intern at RotoWire like 20 years ago. And I was like, great, glad at 41 I finally got rid of that propeller hat. always working harder to to graduate, I guess. But if you got questions for a future episode, send those our way on Discord. We'll put the link for the Discord in the show description as we do. We'll also drop the leaderboard links in there if you haven't checked those out yet. And again, click on the actual pitches in the pitch movement profile. It will bring you to the video of the pitch. It's amazing. That's the tip of the day. Everyone knows it already, so it's really not a good tip of the day. But that is going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed it, drop us a like, leave a rating, or sound off in the comments. We'll see you next time.